Live now on Newstalk 1040. Of course, this is the John D. Villarreal Show on Newstalk 1040 all over the greater Tampa Bay area. Monday, what a nice Monday here. Hey, it kind of feels summery. Happy Mother's Day to everyone that had Mother's Day. Got my wife over here off across the screen. She's a great mom. She's doing her thing. My little daughter, my daughter might be in here a little late. I'm rocking the Rumble shirt. I'm rocking the Rumble shirt. We are live on Rumble right now, and I do appreciate the folks over at Rumble. We love YouTube. We love all the platforms. We are live on LinkedIn. We're now not sure about LinkedIn. I have to repost on that, but we are live on YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, and X right now. Joined by Paul at Villarreal. Couple things are going on. I do appreciate the folks over at Rumble. I did get this shirt from one of the execs over there, and we definitely appreciate that. I got a couple nice little t-shirts. We're rocking that. We are live on Rumble right now, Rumble Studio. We definitely dig that. A lot going on with the Trump trials. We're going to talk about that. We're going to still talk about the Brady roast. That was amazing. And my wife watched that and she was laughing and everything. So there's a lot to talk about with the Brady roast because people are continuing to talk about that. And I've got some footage later. I've got to be able to sort of do a screen on screen thing here, but I've got permission. There was a, let me see here. I want to quote it right. Dr. Eric Becker does some cool videos and stuff talking about the shortages in healthcare and some different things, sort of the whiteboard stuff. I mean, Paul, I was doing the whiteboard so long ago and it's kind of made a comeback with some of the YouTube videos and no big deal. I'm not saying, I mean, it's a known, method of doing videos. I'm not saying I've got any patent on it. But it was something that I definitely was doing for a while. And Dr. Becker has done a great job talking about why there's a shortage of healthcare. It's about a 7-minute thing. We're probably not going to play all of it, but I did ask for permission. We did get the permission, in my opinion. That's my solid interpretation of that. That's my interpretation of they asked for it and he liked the comment. Anyway, and we're going to comment on it. We're going to go through some of that because I think it does a nice explanation of some of the shortages out there and what's happening in healthcare. But it's not just about healthcare. It's kind of a analogy, if you will, or an allegory. I'm probably getting my words a little bit. You can correct me here, Paul, if you want to, of a larger supply side inflation and supply side shortages. What's going on? What happens when you have supply side shortages? Okay. And we're seeing that potentially right now, Paul, with stagflation. And people are saying that stagflation is back now. James Carville is freaking out, metaphorically speaking, because, the youth, I mean, they're saying this election slipping away from Biden. The polls aren't looking good. And he's even saying me going on, people like me going on TV, it's not doing anything. The old methods aren't working. We had Trump at Wildwood, New Jersey. Huge rally. Some estimates, I mean, this is massive. There's just no way to go to if you look at, and we'll look at the pictures. We'll do the picture in picture. We'll show some pictures here very shortly. There's no way around it. I mean, this was big. This, and Democrats were talking about, oh, we've got Trump off the campaign trail and Biden's on the campaign trail. I don't think Biden's ever had a crowd like this other than the inauguration, right? I mean, other than that. But I mean, the Democrats and the federal workers came out. I don't know, but I'm not alleging anything. But I mean, this crowd was there's estimates of up to 100,000 people in deep blue New Jersey. Is New Jersey in play? Trump says it is, and he's got a golf course there at Bedminster. There is a lot going on right now, Paul. Paul, let's bring Paul at Villarreal right in here. Paul, it's been a big week. There's a lot happening. There's a lot happening on campus. We have to talk about the campus stuff, and we also have to talk about what's going on over there, foreign policy-wise. I said this months and months ago. I said this way back in November, I believe, but certainly a long time ago. I'm not saying exactly when, but a long time ago, I said this was going to be a huge problem for the Democrats. And Trump has basically wordsmithed his way into a position. It's interesting because my position seems to be reflected in the polls now by most Americans, and we can talk about that. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but it is because we've talked about it a lot, right? But obviously now with what's going on with the current stuff, there is things to talk about. But also from a political standpoint, I warned that this was going to be a huge problem for the Democrats, and particularly the Biden administration for the reelection. And I think that's borne out. And it's almost like Biden's trying to have it both ways. It's one thing to kind of to maneuver your way into if you will. I'm trying to figure out how I want to characterize this. I think that Trump is very good at crafting a position on subjects, even the ones that are a little bit more, hot, if you will. But I think Biden's trying to have it both ways, and I don't think that's going to work right now. Paul, anyway, lots going on. Your comments right now before we start talking immediately about the Brady roast.
Yeah, look, there is a bunch going on right now. You mentioned the Wildwood rally, and we talked about this off air. Not only was it supposedly, according to town officials, 80 to 100,000 people, but this also is something that will be broadcast and was or talked about in the Philadelphia media. I think that is a very important part this was done because obviously President Trump is making a play for Pennsylvania. It's definitely a swing state. The only area of the state where he really needs to improve as much as he can is Philadelphia. Philadelphia is about 90 minutes from Wildwood. Many people in that area and from all of Pennsylvania go to the Jersey Shore and Wildwood. So there's probably a good portion of that crowd that was Pennsylvanians. And so I think that was a large portion of why that rally was done. Obviously, it was extremely successful. And that's people have been buzzing about that all weekend. That really fired up the Trump supporters. And I got to be honest with you, I think it rattled people on the left. I got a bunch of interactions this weekend since Saturday from people on the left, and much more than what I usually get. I think that rally just kind of just frazzled them a little bit because the numbers were so extensive. So that was amazing. You talked about, we're talking about the trial right now. Of course, the trial, Alvin Bragg trial, Stormy Daniels in New York City. Today, Michael Cohen is the first day that he was testifying. And there's a bunch of things going on with that. I mean, as you can imagine. But various legal experts, including Jonathan Turley, Alan Dershowitz, Greg Jarrett, and et cetera, have just been so dismissive of this trial. I thought that Professor Turley really laid it out well today, just kind of saying what the prosecution strategy is. Your old professor, John Yoo, he was also on Fox talking about it today. And it just feels like, basically what Turley said is, look, this is obvious what the prosecution's trying to do. I don't even think Judge Mershon is really going for it, but they're going to try to work around Mershon with the strategy that they're going to just try to get this to the jury no matter what, even though the prosecution might not even believe that Michael Cohen is credible or that the jury might even find him as credible. It's just kind of breaking it down. So this is kind of the zenith of the trial, so to speak. So photographers were back in the courtroom today taking pictures of President Trump. I guess it's the only person they're allowed to take pictures of. Trump brought J.D. Vance, Tommy Tuberville, Nicole Maliokotis, I think that's how you say her name, representative, brought a bunch of different political figures with him today to the trial to kind of help him out, give him some pushback. And so that's massive today. That's probably the main story of the day. Those are the things going on. New polls came out from the New York Times, almost all of which are favorable to President Trump. So I think you're seeing kind of, we're getting towards the summer here. As you know, once the summer comes around, that's when things start to harden in terms of perception and polling and so forth. So I think that President Biden has a real challenge ahead of him. In fact, of all people, Fareed Zakaria, I think, came out yesterday, had a blip where he basically said he doesn't think Biden can win and that the Democrats may need to take that into consideration, meaning they may need to replace Biden. So you're starting to see things like this. You mentioned James Carville. He's been totally melding down in various, I don't know what they are, podcasts or just little camera appearances. I don't know where he's doing this on. But yeah, he's really, I mean, really sounding the alarm. And I give him credit in the sense that he's probably one of the most honest Democratic strategists out there about everything right now.
So,
and look, it's real concern.
yeah, it's absolutely. And I want to bring you back in here a second. I've got some footage here. This is from NewJersey.com. NewJersey.com released 7 hours ago about the Wildwood, New Jersey rally yesterday with Donald Trump. They've got a 360-degree view of this. We're going to talk through it. It's about a minute video. I'm just going to speed through it a little bit here, okay, on the visual. And I'm just going to tell you, this is the first time I've seen this. I'm going to give you my reaction to it, my honest reaction to this video. We've got it. Okay, we've got it on the screen right now for those of you that are looking at the live stream. You can catch this at John D. Villa Digital Ventures on YouTube or my LinkedIn or Rumble or Facebook. Okay, now we're showing it right here. Now, just that shot. This is just to give a brief on this. This is from. And I showed this briefly earlier while Paul was talking. I didn't even know how long Paul was going to go. He gave us good information. That was great. This is from the press box. You can see that, or not press, but where they do stands. I've been on these. I've seen it. So they basically build a stand, and this is usually like, it depends on where you're at in the stand, how many people are there, what level of press. But if you're like major press at a major event, they've got this stand so that the cameras can, get clear shots of the candidates and all that type of stuff above the crowd. So they build this like stand. You can see that. You can see that. Let me see that. You can see that over here. Okay. These are all working reporters in here. All right. And then you see the cameras and stuff. So they'll all go in here. And obviously the NewJersey.com is up here and they're going to pan. But you can see like you've got the roll right here. This is all filled right here. So you've got Wildwoods. You've got the rides right here. It's a destination, as Paul said. A lot of people coming down there from Pennsylvania, all over the place. You've got the destination right there. You've got, some roller coasters. It looks like some, water slide type of, or water ride type of deal there. And now you've got, this is by the beach or something. This is some kind of area right here. And you've got all of this filled right here. You've got some tent that's filled. You've got all the stands filled right here. You've got these stands right here. This is a lot of people right here. Now, I'm not the estimate on, crowd size and stuff like that. But now we're going to scroll through some of this right here real quick, okay? And you're seeing it's pan. Look at that. Look at that. I mean, you have a little bit of a mini pan right there. It's still filled. Now you have more cameras in there. I mean, then you have back stands right here. These are probably that were put up. I don't know. This looks like this was maybe, I don't know how this is set up. Okay. I'm not sure how this is set up. Maybe this is like a volleyball thing. I don't know. But you've got like, if you think about it on the radio, you've got like high school bleachers, like high school football stadium bleachers. You've got one set of them over here on the left, one set of them over here on the right. It's behind President or kind of like, a bit behind to the side of President Trump, okay? Behind that, you've got the big roller coaster. In front, it's all filled. On the side, it's all filled. I've only gone 3 seconds on this thing, okay? And now let's keep, filled. It's still filled. Wow, look at that. So all of this is filled. Then you appear now we're going a little bit off center to the right. You've got some big sign here. Trump's done a great job of like doing the videos and the kind of like if you look at the UFC fights or something like the lead in, like before the main event, they'll have a little clip, a little build up. He does a good job with those build up clips. You've got some big crane up here. That's obviously some kind of production. You've got another set of high school bleacher stands. So think about that. You've got 3 sets of high school, like football or high school track or whatever, high school stadium type of stands right behind Trump. All of this stuff in the front, it's still filled. We've only gone 6 seconds. I mean, this is a massive rally. This is in deep blue New Jersey. This is crazy. Okay, we're going to keep going. It's still full. Now, okay, now on the side here, this is by the beach. On the side here, a little bit more sort of thinned out, but we're not even getting to the back part here. So this is, okay, there we go. Now that's full back there. You've got Trump. Everything's full. Everything's full. Now there does seem to be like some kind of, up into the lifeguard tower. Everything's full. Now you've got some fencing right here. So you've got some of that happening. You've got some crane up here, probably with the speakers. I can't tell you like exactly how, I mean, it's just full everywhere. Wow. I mean, just look at all those people. This is the thing. It's clear to me by looking at this that they're just packed. I mean, there's certainly thousands there. I can't tell you it. Oh my gosh. I mean, it's just everyone's jammed in. I can't tell you how many people are there. I can't tell you that. I don't know. I mean, maybe 100,000. That feels to me like it's a little too strong, but it's big. But I will tell you this. It's pretty clear to me that it was limited it's my interpretation. I'm not alleging anything, but it seems like it was limited in terms of space, meaning that like if they would have had more space, there could have been more people. There could be people over here in the background on the boardwalk. There could be people, in some overflow lots. They've done that before at Trump rallies when they max out on it. Then they have an overflow lot. I don't know, dude. I can't tell you. But I can tell you that the space that's designated for this, number one, there's a lot of people there. Number two, the space that's designated for this is maxed out. It's maxed out. You can see that. I mean, it's just wall to wall people there. It's absolutely massive. So I don't know. Like that's where I'm coming in. Paul, your comments on this. This I know you did some live tweeting on this. You followed the rally. How many people you think were there? How packed was this?
It was incredibly packed, and where the media stands were, there were still way more people behind it.
We saw that.
So what you're seeing, I think, in that video that you're looking at is just the front side of the media area.
I pulled up one where there's a 360, so I've shown that. Go ahead.
Yeah, there's more people behind the media stands than there are in front of them. That just gives you a sense of what it was. So my personal opinion, I've seen a variety of angles on it. I think you're talking tens of thousands of people. I don't know how many of those, but definitely in that zone. There's just so many people there. It's unbelievable.
Okay, so let's stipulate that there's a lot of people. Let's talk about the impact. I mean, we've seen big Trump rallies before. Trump had big, huge rallies before, much bigger than Biden, and he still lost last time. So now this is New Jersey. What I'm getting at is this translatable into, volunteers, donations, the voters, number one, and I'm just playing devil's advocate here, and number two, is this distinctly different? Is there something quantifiably different about 2024 rallies versus the 2020 rallies? Go ahead.
Yeah, look, I mean, like I said earlier, I think a big reason why this rally was done was to impact the Pennsylvania market. So even if you don't think you're going to win New Jersey, which who knows? I have people that I follow that are from New Jersey talking about they think it's possible it could be in play because of what they're hearing in the state at key cities. But I think much of this was done to impact the Philadelphia market and the Pennsylvania market even more generally. I think that's what a lot of this was about. And let's be honest, he's kind of cooped up in a lot of ways in New York. This is just a massive show of force of kind of MAGA nation. And that's what I think that they wanted they wanted these optics, they wanted these visuals, and they got them. And like I said, I think it's had a large impact on both sides of the aisle based upon what I'm seeing. So I think it worked very well. I think it definitely was covered in Philadelphia on the major networks. And that's, I think, a lot of what this was about. So yeah, I mean, I think it had a good effect, particularly given how constrained he has been.
And again, props to newjersey.com on YouTube for that footage and that information. You can see that on YouTube at newjersey.com. And props to them for getting the story there of what the crowd size is, doing a 360 because, like as you said, Paul, there were so many more people behind the press area and stuff like that. In fact, even more than or just a lot. I'm not saying it's more than in the front, but there's just a lot there. And so would you say, we've got Carville melting down and some other things like that. Would you say that Trump now, in your opinion, has the momentum?
Absolutely. He definitely has momentum. The way I look at the race right now, we can talk more about this in the other segments, is I think based upon polling and based upon what strategists are saying, basically right now it looks like Trump's got the Sun Belt zone locked up, meaning Florida, North Carolina, Georgia, Arizona, even Nevada. which that would put him at 268 electoral votes. Now you need to get 270 to win, or even if you get to 269, he'd win a tie in Congress. So he's not quite over the line yet right now. But basically, he's in a position where I believe that he only needs one of the three Rust Belt states, Wisconsin, Michigan, or Pennsylvania. He's there, and he is leading in a number of polls of those states. So yeah, he definitely has the momentum right now. And I think Biden is playing defense. You mentioned not the least of which is the stuff in the foreign policy stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, I think Trump is feeling very good about where things are, but understanding there's still more work to do.
We're going to talk about the foreign policy stuff. We're going to talk about the campus stuff as well. And a programming note, with about 2 minutes, we've got a break here for the radio portion of it, about a 6-minute break. And we'll pick it up about 4:35, 4:34, somewhere in there. And I want to talk about the Brady Roast because we've got Schultz, right? Comedian Andrew Schultz, who's basically said like, oh, you know, now if anyone says that talks about woke, then we're going to roll your eyes. That's over with. I disagree. Now, I think that this roast was super important for a lot of reasons, and it basically was a punk out of woke culture, if you will, and an in-your-face, if you will, on that. It was almost bringing the locker room, if you will, so to speak, to the stage, and I do think it's an important cultural moment. But as I've said before, maybe a month or two ago, whatever, that we've passed quote unquote peak woke, but by no means are we over the woke era here. And it's very different when you're a famous, celebrity comedian. Okay. And what you can do as a comedian is different than, Susie Q or Johnny Smith iBanker or lawyer or something like that. I can tell you that. Or someone applying to some of these. Look at the Ivy League. Look at these protests. Look at these Ivy League schools and stuff. Look at some of these elite schools. Lots to talk about here. Stay tuned with us. 6 minutes. You're looking at the John D. or listening to the John D. Villar radio show here on Newstalk 1040 AM, live on YouTube, LinkedIn, X, Facebook, Rumble. Appreciate you. Be right back. 6 minutes.
With SRN News, I'm John Scott. Russian troops locked in intense battles with Ukrainian soldiers in the embattled town of Vovchansk and are pushing ahead with a ground offensive that opened a new front to put pressure on overstretched Ukrainian forces. Fire experts warning that an intense wildfire could reach Fort Nelson, a town in western Canada, this week. U.S. Airlines trying to kill a new rule requiring them to disclose fees more quickly when consumers shop for flights. The Transportation Department says that it will defend that rule used to crack down on what it calls hidden junk fees. Stocks finishing mixed. The Dow was down 81 points. The Nasdaq gained 47. The S&P 500 dropped 1 point. This is SRN News.
Progressive knows when you own a boat, life on land is a tough sell.
Come on down to Land, the place where you can do so much walking. You can walk to work, the bus stop, or the gym, where you can pretend you're walking up an endless flight of stairs. Even when you're flying somewhere, you can take a really long walk through the airport. It's Land.
Life on a boat is way more relaxing, and it's even more relaxing when you protect your boat with Progressive, America's #1 boat insurer. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates, #1 rating based on 2022 boat market share data from ratefilings.com.
Balance of Nature supplements, changing the world one life at a time. The fiber and spice is a very effective product. There's no question. A product that is very reliable. It's a very good product.
I swear by these. Probably the best products that I've ever used. I think they're just simply good for your body.
Go to balanceofnature.com.
What's going on, everyone? It's me, John D. Villarreal, here on the John D. Villarreal Show on Newstalk 1040, live on LinkedIn. Well, maybe not LinkedIn, live on Rumble, YouTube, Facebook, and X. Hey, joined by Paul at Villarreal. We're talking about a lot of stuff. In this segment, we'll be talking about, well, we got, who knows, because we got a lot of things to cover. One of the things I want to cover, and I don't know, we've got this cool video by Dr. Eric Becker talking about shortages in primary care physicians. And what I like about that is it does a solid job of straight up basic economic analysis. And I'm not saying that it's a good video. It's you'll see. And but it's applicable to so many different things. It's applicable to like supply side inflation that we're dealing with now. And it makes sense. It makes sense of a lot of things. And I have some things where I think I can improve the modeling on this a little bit. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to like whatever. I mean, obviously, Dr. Becker's in it, but I also have an MBA and master communication, and I was a very, very good at law and economics, and et cetera, et cetera. So I think there's some other things we need to talk about in that mix, but it definitely makes the point. You'll see. We need to talk about some of the. We'll talk about. I may push it to the 5 o'clock hour. There's some new polling about the what's going on over there in the Middle East and foreign policy. And it also kind of brings along some of the campus stuff and the difference between how Republicans and Democrats see this. Probably push that to the 5 o'clock hour. But I want to talk about this Brady roast some more. And, you had Andrew Schultz, who was on stage there, and he's kind of part of the sort of Rogan sphere of comedians, kind of, sort of. And he was basically saying like, he was breaking down what it was behind the scenes, and people had, Nikki Glazer on, and so we hear some of the jokes that we weren't able to say or whatever. And, there's a lot of good things that were, they were doing a good job of sort of the follow on to the roast. The roast was very, a lot of people are talking about it. A lot of people are talking about that. And, Andrew Schultz made the comment that, and the guy's very popular on YouTube. I mean, I'm looking at it right now, 2.9 million subscribers. I mean, it's crazy. Just huge, huge presence on there. He talked about it, and he did Andrew Schultz on the roast, the aftermath, and he goes into it, and he talks about where it is now. And he does a good job of that. But he made a comment in there where it was like, if you talk about woke, stuff, not roll your eyes, with the roast, it's over and stuff. Okay, well, this is the problem that we all sort of face in our own lives, stuff like that, where the roast was super important. It was a big deal. I watched it. A lot of people were talking about it. I do think it was great in that. There's a lot of stuff I can't even say right here, as you can imagine. It's on Netflix. Props to Netflix for being so bold. And listen, just so you understand my position, I'm not in favor of, look, we're for peace, love, freedom, opportunity. We love everybody, for everybody. Okay. But we're talking about this with the range of issues right now. I'm a free speech absolutist almost, you can't be there's certain limits, but I agree with Elon Musk, to the extent of the law and all these terms of service and speech policies and campus policies and stuff. It's like, you're looking at things that encroach. Again, now, the First Amendment applies to government action, but would sort of go against the spirit of freedom of speech. And I'm going to get this quote wrong. I'm going to get it wrong, but I'll get it right enough. The people in power don't need a freedom of speech. You understand what I'm saying? And in fact, like Tucker Carlson made this point that on paper, the Constitution or something of some other, I'm not even going to name the names, I'll let you research that out there, of some other regimes are better, allegedly, than the Constitution. But in practicality, in the enforcement of it, not so much. If you say anything against the regime, maybe your family goes, who knows? Who knows what could happen? Bad things can happen. And the point of it is you need freedom of speech is for ideas where you don't like it. I'm going to get this saying wrong too, but it's basically, you need freedom of speech is for speech you don't like by people you don't like, or something like that. I'm getting that wrong, but I'm getting the gist of it right. And that's the thing. And so to the extent that, and someone said that maybe it's Tony Hinchcliffe, and he did a great job. I think him and Nikki Glazer did probably the best job. Andrew Schultz was okay. I mean, listen, there's a lot of, and someone else said this too. It's really the non-comedians, if they do well, what makes a good roast. And I think, Drew Bledsoe was there. Edelman was there. I mean, there's a lot of good things. People were freaking out on Ben Affleck, but I think he was fine. It wasn't, he's not a comedian. You know what I'm saying? Like, and maybe he didn't understand, or he just wanted to come and support Tom, and it's fine, dude. It's fine. Who knows? I'm not going to psychoanalyze Ben Affleck. It's like, what? It's like, who cares, dude? And so, but what was good about it is everybody got made fun of repeatedly. And if you see like the Kill Tony stuff on YouTube's great stuff. And I've been, that's what's great about something like this, is that you just discover some new talent, some new stuff. And like, they just go up there and rip each other and stuff like that. And you know, I mean, and not like Daniel Cormier. It's like I'll never do a roast. I can't do it. Okay, if you know that's not you, so you got to give props to Netflix for doing this and almost going against brand, almost pivoting. And we're seeing that now. We're seeing Disney starting to pivot, Marvel starting to pivot. There's signs that we're moving from the Kathleen Kennedy era of Star Wars. Bud Light is pivoting. You know, they've now got some deal with the UFC. They've done some stuff with Kid Rock. I mean, after losing a bunch of money, things are starting to change. Things are starting to move. Starbucks is taking big hits. And you can't be in the position of just saying, punk you know, to the fans, where you're basically your customers. You can't just punk out your customers and be against your customers and think that's a good thing. If you don't like the brand, you choose another brand or something like that. You know, I mean, when you're doing a complete brand over, and we see this in automotive, right? I'm an expert in automotive, been in automotive field on and off for a while now, over a decade. And you'll see where a brand like Mercedes or a Lexus and different brands go like, okay, well, we want to capture more of these buyers. We want to go sporty now, or we want to capture younger buyers, or we want to expand, or whatever it is. And you totally do a remake. I can't tell you how many times, I'm not naming any names, particularly it's different. You know, there's different challenges for different brands where it's like, you know, oh, this brand is known as reliable, but this brand isn't, or now we want to be more reliable, or we want to have a facelift. When you're switching brands and you're doing a big change, there's a bunch of disruption. People come in, I don't like the new look of it, or I don't like whatever. And so if you have to, okay, when you make, a lot of times these brand changes are disastrous. Not always, but challenging. Let me revise and extend. Challenging. Why? Because let's say you've got, and I'm making up numbers, right? I'm totally making up numbers. Let's say 15 million people in the US buy new cars every year. Okay, great. Let's say brand X, I won't even name a brand. Brand X sells 300,000 cars, okay, or vehicles. Now you've totally done a brand change. You've complete facelift. You've gone in totally different ways. Before you were known for like smooth, quiet, luxuries. Now you're going to be young, fast, sporty, aggressive, and you totally changed it. You've got to be able to make the decision. You've got to make the calculation, the strategy from a strategic standpoint. If I switch and I make this move, it's going to get me at least 300,000 new customers, or I'm going to keep 80%, 90%, whatever, and pick up another 20, 30% over here. But if you lose half your customers, so 150,000 are gone, and now you only pick up 20,000 of new customers, that's a net negative. That's a bad move, right? That does not make business sense. But what you've had with this woke Inc. type of stuff, if you will, is you've had like the elites, and this is a highly recommended. And unfortunately, the sound on it's really not that good because they're moving in and out of the microphone range, if you will. They should have done They should have put lavalier mics or had the mic at the podium. I don't know. They should have done or handheld. They should have done just something different with the sound. But there's this on the Oxford Union. They have these debates and stuff like that. I'll pull it up. We'll talk about that in the next hour. But basically, it's a defense of populism. And basically, what it's saying is that populism is basically what I've been saying for a long time. Populism is listening to the people. Now, you don't want extreme populism because that's, mob rule and pure democracy and, everyone's going to vote and take Trump's money or whatever, okay. We don't want that, right? That's why we have, constitutional rights, things like that, because that defends, minorities and, in the broadest sense of that, right? I mean, every person is their own, I'm one person against the whole massive United States, if you were not against, but, in the middle of, so, and depending on so it defends individual rights. That's a better way to say it. Individual rights, individual liberties, things like that. That's a better way to say that. So the thing I disagree with Schultz is it's easy. I agree with him that this was big, huge. The Brady roast was huge. And we'll get Paul's comments here in a second. I disagree in that oh, that means that woke stuff's over. Absolutely wrong. You, my friend, are in that, like, I don't know where he's based out of. I'm not sure if it's an LA, Hollywood scene, whatever it is. Certainly, obviously he's a comedian. Obviously he was on Netflix. He's big time. I'm sure he's very wealthy and stuff like that. So, what Joe Rogan can get away with and do, and what Cat Williams and the rest is different than what, Paul Villarreal, John Villarreal, or someone out there, who's applying to medical school or applying to law school, trying to get a corporate job, dealing with all the everything there, the HR departments and the DEI and all the rest of it. So no, we're not past peak woke. I mean, and look at the college campuses. Look at the college campuses. Paul, your comments. I've talked a lot about here. I'll put some different things on the table. Let's make sense of it.
Yeah, look, I agree with you that maybe, hopefully, peak woke is over. That's what I think a lot of people are hopeful about. I mean, we just saw today the University of North Carolina, I guess, maybe Chapel Hill. I don't know if it's the entire system.
Saw that. Yeah, go ahead.
But yeah, they just apparently have removed funding from the DEI program and are reallocating it apparently to the campus police program.
And let me say this too, on the heels, real quick, on the heels of UT Austin doing the same thing, I think Ben Sass over there at Florida was talking about some stuff, and also recently MIT's taken out DEI considerations in hiring, I believe, for faculty. I believe that's correct.
Yeah, there are a number of institutions, I think, that are doing this. And we're seeing them like, other things such as you don't have to have a diversity statement anymore, I believe, at MIT. So there are all kinds of ripples of this going on throughout academia right now. So, yes, perhaps peak woke is over. And let me just say this, and of course, this is clear, but we'll just say it anyway. Look, we are for everybody and
100%.
Believe in justice for everybody, and equality for everybody. We discussed that for my own self, and I believe John as well. We're talking about woke. That's not the same thing. That's more of kind of a possible, issues that the Supreme Court has recently ruled on. So it's not. It's more. It's a different type of a thing.
Let me see if I can clarify real quick. Exactly what Paul's saying. We are for peace, love, freedom, opportunity for everyone. We love everyone. Everybody should have a fair and equal shot at everything. Okay. Now, fair enough. I think that the left makes some points that, hey, there may have been, obviously there was some really horrible stuff in the past. Maybe there's some history, systemic, whatever. There's some things that need to be addressed, worked on, whatever. But as Bill Maher said, you cannot pretend that 2024 is the same as the 1960s or the 1950s or 1865 or 1776. It's just not anywhere. Okay. Well, now, some places are better, some places are worse in the world. There's still some big challenges. But looking here in America, it is measurably and discernibly better. Morgan Freeman has talked about this. A lot of people have talked about this, okay? And in fact, you're seeing waves and massive amounts of Hispanics and minorities and African Americans and other people coming over to the Republican side, coming to the Trump side. Nonetheless, Lawrence Taylor, I voted for Democrat all my life. My family voted Democrat all my life. I wasn't a Republican until I met Donald Trump. And so what we're saying is, as I've said before, and I've done stuff to help out with our family and our dad and Kennedy King scholarships. I've protested against discrimination, stuff like that. We've done stuff. We're obviously, minorities, half minority, whatever you want to call it, half Hispanic. And mixed race family, all that type of. I mean, I hate all. There's only a human race. You know what I mean? Like, I hate all this type of talk. Honestly, but what the reality. So we've done stuff with there's a scholarship endowed in my dad's name in there. I've done stuff. Listen, I'm not going to sit here and do the resume dump, but the point is that what it takes is a sustained mentorship and outreach and educational effort. You have to give people the tools to lift themselves up. You have to give people the tools to be able to compete. And that takes time. The problem is when you try to just jump to the end, if you're playing Monopoly and just try to hand people Park Place and Boardwalk without the work that goes in, this is a bad analogy, but it maybe makes some sense. that's not a great thing. And that's particularly dangerous in certain areas. Like we're gonna have to push the medicine stuff obviously in the next, if when you start doing that for airline pilots and frontline military and, astronauts, then you can get into some, doctors do some really dangerous situations. Okay. And in fact, we've seen again, I'm not trying to get too political with some of these, I'll keep it generic. We've seen where, some people I'm gonna be careful on this. If you do not hire for merit, eventually you're going to have some problems, and it may be sooner rather than later. And I think we've seen some examples of that, and that's not a good thing. I just want to say that. But in that context, we are the land of immigrants, the home of the free, the land of the free, home of the brave. We are for everybody. We want to see everybody do well. We just want to do it the right way. That's all that it is. Because if I'm giving you a special opportunity, I'm taking away from someone else, and we have to make it so it's kind of like my feeling with the stuff over there and the foreign policy stuff on many different areas. At some point, it's got to stop. War's not good for anybody. I'm not saying I have all the answers to everything, but two wrongs don't make a right. We have to find a way forward together. The same thing happened. I think, Paul, you're the history major, and I'll bring you in here in 1 second, in Rwanda and stuff like that. When you start, and I talked to someone that was from Bosnia, the Bosnia area, when you start turning people against each other, you're oppressor, all this type of stuff. It's toxic. It's absolutely toxic for the society. Now, that being said, there are things to work on and address. And I do think that it's important to be conscious of trying to help people out and lifting people up. And that's hard work, right? And meaning that, like, sometimes it's too easy, especially with today's day and age of being very, who's got the likes and the views and the attention economy and very materialistic, especially when it's so hard to just make a living. It's easy to kind of be in our enclaves, if you will, like, hey, my life's okay. I'm not worried about how bad it is in this place or that place in here in America. And I don't want to name the places, but a lot of people are trying to move from, as JD Vance would say, hey, listen, you can talk about inner cities, but I can tell you about Appalachia is super poor too. And I don't think it's a matter of a contest, but I'm just saying, like, we have a lot of work to do, which is why a lot of people were criticized. Why are we sending $100 billion overseas when we have a lot of problems that we have to address here at home with our people? So there's a lot of work to do. And as like anything in life, it takes work. There's no easy solutions. And that's the problem. That's anyway, I've said a lot. Hopefully I've cleaned some of that up. Paul, your comments.
Yeah, look, as I said, I think the guiding principles here are equality. And a good way for equality to be measured, at least in some respects, is meritocracy, based upon the kind of equal principles applied to everybody. That's what we're talking about here. And I think coming back to the core of the discussion, I think that some of the programs may have gotten away from those principles a little bit, and I think that's why the Supreme Court ruled as they have recently on some of these cases. And so back to all of this, if you don't want to have, you just don't want things to be out of alignment. I think that's the easiest way to say it. And John explained that pretty well right there. So I do think that we are possibly coming away from that right now. And there's definitely a lot of evidence to that. But as John said, referring to Andrew Schultz's comments, it's not over yet. There are still people who are having to watch what they say. Maybe people are trying to cancel them, and so on and so forth. So we're not there yet.
Well, time out. Sorry, I'll say this real quick. Hopefully you're done. Anyway, Andrew Schultz should know better, because there was a couple times, Dana White's comments, Tony Hinchcliffe's comments, there was a couple times, if I remember correctly, where Andrew Schultz and Kevin Hart kind of winced, like, is that okay? Can we do that? Are they doing that? Did they say that? I'm not in their head. I can't tell you what they were thinking, but being a human being on this earth for a while now, that was my interpretation of it. Okay. And if you look at it, you freeze the frame. So if I'm right, Andrew Schultz at that very roast, you were like, ugh. And in fact, you also, Tony Hinchcliffe did a joke. I won't say it here. You could hear the crowd go super quiet. Like, are we allowed to say, So there you go. So stop playing. We're still in woke situations here, okay? But I think what was so powerful about the roast is, here is predominantly, I want to be careful how I say this, but I think I will say this is a bunch of successful former athletes, celebrities, most of them men, because the nature of the NFL, whatever, that we're getting together and saying, we're going to have a good time. We're going to bring the locker room here. We're going to poke fun at each other. We're going to roast our friend here. And we don't care what anyone thinks about it. We're done with this. We want to have a good time. We want to get back to what we want to get back to here. And there was something, I think America needed it. And we go through, listen, we've been here before. We go through different periods, different things where we have to just, the roaring 20s and the Civil War, different. I'm not saying we need a Civil War, but I mean, we don't need any of that. But it's like, they talk about the pendulum swinging back and forth and stuff like that. And it's like, I think there's lessons to be learned from both sides, but people need to be, you can't be penalized for being yourself. How about that? Does that make sense? Like, I mean, come on. And so there's it's idea that we came to this boss culture and stuff like that. This is just an example. And you hear people on TikTok and we don't need men. Are you insane? Are you absolutely insane? We need everybody. Like, what are you talking about? The earth, the human society, human civilization isn't what it is without everybody. This is so crazy. But this is the kind of crazy thinking that we have right now. And it's just not that. And what did I tell you? What I told you before. That's why I'm a super genius. That's why I'm ahead of the game. I've been saying it for a while. 2023 was your reality. And 2024, this year, is the revenge of reality. Cat Williams has said that. Other people have said that. It's moving back, dude. That's why you got however many people, tens of thousands, 100,000. I don't know how many. A lot of people, Wildwood, New Jersey, Deep Blue, New Jersey, line up to see Trump. It's changing. You're part of that change out there in Newstalk 1040 audience, and we appreciate you. Next hour, we're going to talk about Dr. Eric Becker's video. We're going to talk about the Middle East stuff. We're going to talk about where we're at in this race. A lot of things happening. 5 o'clock hour coming up. John D. Villarreal Radio Show here on Newstalk 1040, live on Rumble, Facebook. Next, we'll be back in 6 minutes. about 3 minutes until the air for the radio show. So just stand by. I'm getting next hour ready. Appreciate everyone being here. Hey everybody, what's going on? It's me, John D. Villarreal, here live on Newstalk 1040 AM. Also live on Rumble, YouTube, Facebook, and X. I'm laughing because my daughter Janair is coming in here in the room. Mama's got to go do something, so we are all of us here on Newstalk 1040 and live on LinkedIn, YouTube, LinkedIn later are going to be helping babysitting my daughter. So we don't know where the show is going to go. What is this? Okay, we're getting some different things right now. Okay, all right. I don't know. Some of this chat's coming in here. Let me get some of this away. So let's see here. How do I disable that? I'm learning the YouTube, the Rumble Studio type of stuff. So we're getting some different comments coming in here. Here's the deal. Okay, we're talking about a lot of stuff. And I don't know if I can delete that or not. So I'm not sure how that works there on Rumble. We're learning it. We do appreciate that. I do have my Rumble shirt on here. We do appreciate that. We do appreciate YouTube. We appreciate all the platforms. Not the best start here, but Janair probably will be joining us later, and she might be showing some of her drawings and talking about stuff. We're very proud of Janair. She actually got, I believe, 92 percentile in the whole nation on some of these tests for her. She's in like first grade now on math, so she's doing amazing there. And I might, we'll see. We might talk about kind of what we've been, Mom and I have been really working with her on a lot of different things. Education's huge for us. We may be talking and going a little bit behind the scenes in terms of what we do and how we help, teach and educate and train up Janair and all that type of stuff. So what I want to do, talk about education. And we're still here with Paul at Villarreal and stuff. And we were talking about, the woke stuff. We were talking about the Trump rally. I'm going to get into the Dr. Eric Becker's video here in 1 second. Do you have any quick comments that you had? Anything that you didn't finish up last hour that you want to say real quick, Paul?
Oh, look, I think we covered most of the stuff. Again, I think we are moving to a better place in terms of where all of this is at. So, and that Andrew Schultz is correct in that I think we're moving away from that, but there are still issues and there are still people affected by it. And I think that's unfortunately the case. And we just have to kind of keep moving in a positive direction.
Okay, very good. So now here's the thing: is that I was on LinkedIn before, and Dr. Eric Becker, he's been doing some of these whiteboard videos, and I've done this a long time ago. A lot of people are doing it. I'm not saying that, but I've done this like about a decade ago or more even. But I'm not saying I have any patent on it. Other people are doing it and stuff like that. And I think it's a great, kind of way to do things. I think it's a good approach. I think it's very interesting. And he's done a really good job. So it's just a method. It's just a way to work. And I asked for permission to show this video, which I'm going to do here. Probably not all of it, but who knows? We'll see how it goes. But it's about a 7-minute video, 8-minute video, and talking about why there is I think it's a good economic analysis, and I want to add some of my commentary to it. I'm very good at economics, in my opinion. Now I was really, really good at law and economics. And I think, there's a couple other things here. And I'm not trying to flex or show anyone up. He's obviously an expert and does a great job with this, gets a lot of attention, a lot of followers on LinkedIn, a lot of comments on his stuff. And we need it. It's great. And even great, I know Professor Jay Bai, I hope I pronounced that right, G Bai from Johns Hopkins, and Dr. Martin McCary, who's also a lot on Fox and has testified in congressional hearings and stuff like that. Also like some of the stuff, I believe. So with that, let's share some of this. I'm going to try to get the sound right here for those of you at listening on the radio. And I'll take my breaks and we'll sort of talk through it. Okay. So let's do this now. So we can share this right here. All right. Now I don't want to get into too much in the technical stuff. I'm hoping this actually plays. It should play. I have my LinkedIn open on one browser, but I have this on the other browser. So I just don't know if it's going to work here, but hopefully it will. Let's give it a shot.
Hello, this is Dr. Eric Bricker, and thank you for watching A Healthcare Z. Today's topic is shortages in healthcare. So I'm sure many of you have been seeing in the news how there's a shortage of doctors, all different types of doctors, but especially primary care physicians. So it's estimated that there will be a shortage of between 21,000 and 55,000 primary care physicians by 2033, just
That's
9 short years away. Shoot, today people are having a hard time making an appointment with a primary care physician because there's a shortage of them.
Okay, so what I like about this is he lines it up. He talks about it. He sets a table with the problem. This is about 11-minute video, so we're going to have to go through certain parts. So I want to set up some more of the table here, and we definitely appreciate Dr. Bricker. Excuse me, Dr. Bricker. Very much apologize. We appreciate Dr. Eric Bricker for allowing us the opportunity to play this on the John D. Villarreal radio show and talk through it. So with that, let's continue. Let's continue right here.
Likewise, I'm sure many of you have been seeing in the news or have been experiencing in your own healthcare a shortage of nurses, where there is an estimate that there is going to be approximately 195,000 open nursing positions per year that need to be filled, but there's demand for them to be filled, but there's not supply. There's not enough people. There's a shortage of people that want to be nurses to fill those job openings. So let's talk about shortages, because we got a lot of shortages in healthcare. And in order to understand shortages, then you have to understand the basic economic supply and demand curves.
Okay, so now this is great. All right, so he set the table, talked about the problem. We're probably going to go the whole segment on this, and this is why, because this is very important to understand, because it sets the table for the. So he talks about, okay, there's a shortage of primary care physicians, shortage of nurses. Now we're going to talk. They've got for those of you at home on the radio. Okay, if you're not looking at, and I would refer you to, you can check out my channel, John D. Villarreal Digital Ventures, on YouTube or Rumble, and or I'm just John D. Villarreal, I think, on Rumble, or my LinkedIn, right? And I'll post this later on LinkedIn, and or Dr. Eric Bricker, his video on LinkedIn, his page on LinkedIn as well. But what we have here is he has a whiteboard that says shortages in healthcare. Primary care physicians, there's a shortage of 21,000 to 55,000 by 2033. Nurses, there's 195,000 shortage, and you've got a basic supply and demand curve. You've got the equilibrium where supply meets demand. Then you've got price at equilibrium, and then you have price star where it's adjusted. We'll get into this. You have supply star and demand star. And when you have prices artificially depressed, you have less supply because less people want to work on that job. And think about it. Like if they did a reverse minimum wage and now at a fast food restaurant, instead of making $20 an hour in California, now you're making $5 an hour, you'd probably have a lot less people. I'm not advocating for that. I'm just talking hypothetically. You'd have a lot less people signing up for that. Or if I've been in automotive because I have been lucky enough to make a lot of money. And I've always said this to people, look, if I don't make X money, I'm not doing it. I'm not, it doesn't work for me. It doesn't make sense to me. The only reason it makes any sense to me is because I can make a lot more in Florida. I can make more money than a lot of lawyers. You know what I mean? And I think I saw something where the average, I don't know, I think this was some kind of a survey for the bar or something like that. Like the average partner makes 150. That's not bad, but not everyone's a partner. And I can just tell you on a run rate, I've done much better than that. Okay. There's pros and cons. It's not about me. I'm making the point. I'm making the point that what something pays is going to directly influence the supply. That's pretty commonsensical. But likewise, that if the cost of something is lower, that then increases demand. Anyway, I don't want to steal Dr. Bricker's thunder here, but I'm just setting things up, and I'll have some more comments, and then we'll get Paul's comments after we get through some of this. Okay, so here we go.
Right, so the law and supply and demand is what determines shortages in healthcare. Now, you don't have to understand the law of supply and demand, but I would argue that if you're like an educated adult, then you need to understand the law of supply and demand. So I'm sorry, this is just one of these things that you just need to know as an adult. Okay, how?
Totally agree with him. Completely agree with him. I was on mute there. Totally agree with Dr. Bricker on this. And I've said this for the longest time, and people are starting to pick this up. You can go through high school, you can go through college, and it's not required. You have to learn foreign languages. You have to learn different things depending on where you're at. But you do not have to learn like basic economics and basic personal finance. That's craziness because that affects like everybody. Like, I don't know, almost, I mean, I just don't know how you get through. Like, I agree with him. You have to know about supply and demand. And the fact that we don't have people that know that, that affects policy. That affects like how people vote on things. That affects all kinds of different stuff. So something to really think about there. Let's continue with with Dr. Bricker's analysis.
How do you draw it? You draw a y-axis and an x-axis. Okay, on the y-axis, you have price. On the x-axis, you have quantity. Then you draw a downward sloping demand curve and an upward sloping supply curve, and they intersect. And where they intersect, that's called the equilibrium. And the price where they intersect is the equilibrium price. In other words, that's the price that is, in this case, since we're talking about jobs, right? So this is the price for labor. In other words, your wage. So the price for labor is your wage. So where the demand curve and the supply curve intersect, that determines the wage. Is the nurse going to make $75,000 or $50,000 or $100,000? Is the primary care physician going to make $150,000 or $200,000 or $250,000, right? That is determined by the intersection of the supply and demand curve. Okay, now down to the quantity. Well, how many people are going to become doctors? Well, how many people are going to become primary care physicians? How many people are going to go into nursing? Okay, that is the quantity, the number of people working at those jobs, the number of hours that they work. Okay, that's going to be the equilibrium quantity is going to be determined by the intersection of price and quantity. Okay, you're like, this is so boring. This is like some high.
Okay, so he's going on and on about this, and that's great. I'm going to fast forward to some of this stuff, and okay, so now we're picking up artificially low price. Here we go.
There's an artificially low set price. So you have rationing. By definition, when you have shortages, you have rationing. And there's two types of rationing. There is a queue. There is a wait list.
Okay, so I've already explained the fundamental economic principles in this, all right? So now what he's talking about is how this rolls out. Well, how you experience this. And when he talks about it, even if you don't understand economics, this should definitely make sense to you. right? This is, and then you think about what do we need to do about it? Here we go.
It's first come, first serve, right? By definition, if there's not enough, you gotta wait. Okay. Or 2, there's price rationing, which is okay. Well, if you don't want to wait, then you pay more. So in other words, it allows the price to go from the artificially low price up to the equilibrium price. So here in America.
Okay, so I want to talk about that right now because those are very important concepts we can cover. We've been hearing for so long before Obamacare and everything like that. Hey, if everyone, healthcare is a right, and look at all these other countries. Look at Canada. Look at fill in the blank. Europe or this country or that country. We've got healthcare. It's quote unquote free healthcare for. First of all, nothing's free. It's being paid for some way, somehow. Taxes, government spending, whatever. There is nothing free. Okay. Or these healthcare systems that are socialized, they're having a hard time getting physicians because they don't pay enough. Or there's like some percentage. I think I saw some an English physician posting something like, okay, the national healthcare system you can do, or maybe it's later in this video, but I know some of this stuff where like, so much of your time has to be in the national healthcare system, and then you can do 20% private practice to make more money or different things like that. Or they'll go to different countries. Okay, I'm not working here anymore. I'm going to go work over here. The markets work, okay? But what happens is with these other countries, you end up with quote unquote free healthcare, serious rationing where you can't see a doctor for 6 months, a year, 2 years. Or, hey, we're not doing these surgeries anymore. If you're over certain, if you don't meet certain qualifications, if we don't think that there's enough societal value, it means it kind of goes to the social credit score and stuff like that. So all kinds of crazy stuff that happens. At the end of the day, you can't beat supply and demand, dude. You can't, you know what I'm saying? Like, it affects everything. And so we have these fairy tales where everybody gets the best free healthcare in the world, or it just doesn't work. Like as Margaret Thatcher says, socialism is great until you run out of other people's money. So believe me, markets work, and particularly in a global economy. So that's what he's talking about right here. And he's going to come up with some specific examples,
In the free market for like, let's say at the grocery store, we largely do price rationing, right? Well, you pay more for your bananas or your bread, and they supply the bananas and the bread, and then you get this equilibrium. There's enough bananas and bread, and people pay for it, right? Whereas like back in the 20th century with like, Maoism and communism and Marxism, right? What did they have? They had artificially low set prices. So they didn't have enough bananas and bread. So there was a shortage, right? Okay. So there was a wait list. There was a queue. All right. So that exists in healthcare across the planet. Okay. The important thing about shortages in healthcare in America is that healthcare in America is filled with both queue rationing and price rationing. It's not a question of one. It's not a question of the other. Both exist.
This is an important point. I want to make this point, right? So you've got people like, okay, I got on Medicare, Medicaid. Okay, what happens now if you can't get it to a doctor? What happens now if your doctor doesn't take Medicaid and Medicare? And there's all kinds of plus. So you're covered. As we saw this with Obama, you're covered, but you just can't see a doctor. Or now you're seeing a doctor for 5 minutes instead of 20 minutes, or 10 minutes instead of 14 minutes, whatever it is, But if you have money, the people with money, they can go see a doctor, no problem. Or the people with the Cadillac plans and government or something like that, they can go see a doctor, no problem. But he has the example of LASIK, and you can use all kinds of stuff with that. You can, there's all kinds of different things.
Can I just say something?
Go ahead,
quickly?
hit me.
Let me just tell you this, because I know this from working or being around with people who are on the lower end of the scale, like people on Medicaid or Medicare, as you're talking about. What happens for some of those people is they are covered. Like, just because this goes to your point, they are covered. They have dental coverage. They have other types of coverage. I've seen people on Medicaid having to go multiple counties from their county. Why? Because they're covered, but none of the dentists in that county take Medicaid. And that's exactly what you're talking about right there. You can have coverage and it becomes totally meaningless because there's nobody to give you a product that will take your insurance. So the insurance becomes worthless. And that's exactly what he's talking about.
And what's crazy is you're still paying for that insurance coverage, or the government is, or somebody's still paying for that. So that's what's so insane about that. So Janae's joining us over here. So she's on the bed right now. We may see her in a bit. We might see some pictures. We have seen different. Anyway, we have some more to get through here. And we're not going to get through all of it, but let's just keep pushing on this. But this is super important, not just for what Dr. Eric Bricker is saying right here, but also how it applies to the energy market. So think about that. You have certain things where if oil is at $20 a barrel, then certain kinds of oil fields are profitable and come online. $30 more comes online, $40 at a certain point, like I can't remember, like $50 or whatever. Now you start seeing where the fracking stuff makes sense. At a certain point, offshore stuff makes sense. So the price will meet supply if it's allowed to. If the government says, hey, we're shutting down Anwar, we're shutting down these oil fields, whatever, then it distorts the market. And so what we have right now is a supply side inflation, a artificial lock on supply. And that the energy, everything takes energy, so that raises the price of energy, which is why we have inflation that cannot, in my opinion, is having a hard time being solved by the Federal Reserve. That's part of why I wanted to play this. That's what gets into stagflation. And we saw the same thing again when? Jimmy Carter days. Okay, let's keep pushing on this.
Okay, now, this happens all over the world. Let me give you an example. The British National Health Service, so in the United Kingdom, they have the British National Health Services, which has artificially low set prices because the government sets the prices for what they pay the doctors and the nurses or whatever. And so there, what do they have in the British National Health Service? They have queues, they got lots of lines. Okay, but in the UK, they don't have one, but they rather have two healthcare systems. That's right. In Great Britain, they also have a private pay healthcare system where the doctors are allowed to set a certain amount of time. It's like 20% of their time for people who can pay. They can essentially skip the line by paying. So in other words, they use price to ration for like 20% of their office visits. Okay, so it's a combination of a queue, first come, first serve in Great Britain, and price rationing based on the ability to.
Okay, so he keeps talking about this, and I'm going to push forward a little bit more here because I'm going to wind it down, but I'm going to give a little bit of a, I don't want to say criticism, but add to the model a little bit here, right? So let's see. I just want to find one more thing here.
I had to wait 16 months.
Okay.
So the Canadian woman's child didn't have to wait 4 months. September of next year.
Right.
What? So the Canadian woman.
All right, I push forward here. We was talking about in Canada with their healthcare system there, kind of socialized, that they basically had to wait 16 months to see someone. Okay, so here we go.
Child didn't have to wait 4 months. The Canadian woman's child had to wait 16 months for a pediatric pulmonology appointment. Okay, so everyone says, okay, well, it's affordable, et cetera, but just know that if you're going to set artificially low prices.
Right, and think about that, affordable, right? It may be affordable in dollars and cents, and we saw this with the pandemic when people couldn't get screening and stuff like that, and people were behind on the regular healthcare stuff. Is it affordable when the healthcare costs to you? What if it costs? What if you miss the screening of a major disease or cancer or treatment, or you've got chronic stuff, or you can't manage your whatever it is? I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's major costs here, not just in health costs, not just in dollars. Now that can be translated into economic stuff like that. Not all of it, obviously, but you got to think about that. So what we've shown in America is people are willing to pay a premium for healthcare services because they want good healthcare. They want good healthcare outcomes. And so it's not, you have to look at what the outcomes are. It's not just a dollars and cents thing, if that makes sense. Okay. I have to wind this up here pretty fast. So he goes on like this. This is great. We may do some more of this in the next segment. We have a lot of other things to cover. But one of the things I want to address here, he talks about supply and demand, different systems. He does a great job. Appreciate you, Dr. Eric Bricker, for allowing us to play this on the John D. Villarreal show. And we hope to have him join us on the show at some point and talk about this because he'll do a great job. I have no doubt about that. But one of the things I want to say is it's beyond that, because also you can't get a medical residency unless you match and do the whole thing. And you have to have Medicare funding. You have to be attached to a teaching hardship. But there's a very major shortage of those things. And so we have a doctor shortage, but there's this big gating item. You have a lot of foreign medical doctors. I mean, my wife is thank goodness. Oh, I mean, we've been trying for 10 years plus to get her a medical residency. She was a top doctor from Israel. Top, I mean, for her level and stuff like that. I've talked about that before, and it took 10 years. There's legions of stories like that. So if they made it easier for some of these doctors with of equivalent skills to port over, that would have helped the supply, and then we could have cheaper healthcare. Listen, we're going to have to talk about in the next segment. You're feeling a taste of it. It's the John D. Villar Radio Show here on Newstalk 1040 live on Rumble, YouTube, Facebook, and X. Be back in 5-6. What's up, everyone? This is John D. Villarreal Show here on Newstalk 1040. Also live on Rumble, YouTube, Facebook, and X. Talking about a lot of stuff. We were talking about Dr. Eric Bricker in his video. We'll just wrap up a little bit of that. I don't think I've missed anything there, but just in case I did. And then we're going to talk about the whole, the campus stuff, election 2024, stuff going on overseas, things like that, and wrap it all up here for this week. Okay. So let's see here. Let's go back to this a little bit and just see if there's anything else here at the end here. We're kind of past the midway point here. Let's just see what else we've got here.
Then by definition, you will have a wait list and you will have children waiting 16 months for pediatric pulmonologists. Okay. I'm not trying to be alarmist here, but we just need to understand that, we talk about how expensive healthcare is in America. Listen, and that's bad. But listen, 18-month waiting lists or 16-month waiting lists, they're bad too. Again, the point of this video today is not to debate which is better or worse. The point is that shortages exist as a result of artificially low prices. By definition, you will either have a waitlist queue or price rationing. There's no other way.
Okay, totally agree. Okay, and that's the thing right there. So people talk about cost. Okay, what's worse than cost? What's worse than cost is not being able to get care or being covered and not being able to get care. And he goes through this just like in a second here, where like there's some instances where there's one doctor for 1 million people or in a metro or something like that. One doctor that does this specialty, and there's even stuff like in law. Yeah, I used to be a lawyer. Well, I'm still a lawyer in California, not licensed in Florida, not practicing in Florida, no attorney, blah blah blah, all that type of stuff. But they do pro bono stuff in the law, right? Or in a hospital, they have the if you go in there, they're going to treat you. Now, you may have a bill or they may write it off or whatever like that. But and this is part of why people talk about like when you have uncontrolled borders where it can overrun our healthcare system and stuff like that. And that's a whole another conversation, because they will treat you, but you can't get treated if there's no doctors, okay, or medical professionals that do whatever needs to be done. And so he'll go on that. We'll skip through a lot of this here. We'll wind this down.
And specifically, let's look at how it relates to the severity. I told you there was a mix in America. Let's look at the severity of illness in America. So let's look at trauma, okay? So in a traumatic situation, the demand curve is perfectly inelastic. It goes up and down. You're going to demand services for that trauma no matter what.
Right. Okay. So you're in a car accident, or you need to have some transplant, or you have emergency surgery. You're going to get that. You're going to pay for that emergency surgery, or if you can, right, at all. I mean, like it doesn't, if you need some treatment to save your life, if you have $1 million in the bank, it doesn't matter if that treatment is $5,000, $10,000, $100,000. It's an inelastic, demand curve. You're going to pay for that. So he basically goes on and like this. He talks about how there's one person that can do this. If there's two people that in $1 million, if there's two people that need it, like you're out of luck. Right. If there's only one doctor. And the thing I would humbly submit to, and thank you again, Dr. Eric Bricker, for allowing us to play this on the John D. Villarreal Show here. And you can see him on LinkedIn, Eric Bricker, MD on LinkedIn, or check out my LinkedIn, John D. Villarreal, or the John D. Villarreal Digital Ventures on YouTube. And of course, here on Rumble, John D. Villarreal. And obviously tuning into the John D. Villarreal Show on Newstalk 1040. And the one thing I would add to that model, or analysis rather, is, again, there is a constrained supply of physicians because you have to go through medical residency. You can be the Surgeon General of Israel, the Surgeon General of England, the Surgeon General of Germany, of Japan. Name the country except Canada. There's the only country that we have reciprocity. And I heard that there's some, it's maybe not super duper easy. I don't know. I'm not alleging that. You have to retrain here. So you could be 50, 60. You could be running a hospital. You could be head of surgery. You could be the Surgeon General, 45 years old, whatever. You have to retrain here. We just went through it with my wife. Okay. And thank goodness she got a residency, because the thing of it is like she scored top in the entire country I believe this is right. I could be wrong, but I believe this is right. Because they do different things over there testing. She was at Sheba Tel Shamir. This is like a top 10, top 15 hospital in the world. And she's tied with someone else. They gave her anything she wanted. You want to do plastic surgery? Great. You want to do anesthesia? Great. You want to do it? Whatever you want to do. And she ended up saying, okay, I'm going to do anesthesia because we were dating at the time and it would be better for family. And she was going to get something like 500,000 shekels just to finish her residency. And she came over here and it's been hellaciously tough to get her a medical residency because I hear there's not even enough residencies or there's just enough or not. It's a tight supply for American medical school graduates. And I don't want to go into our story again. It's something like that. We're very, very proud of my wife and we don't want to, oh my gosh. I mean, this is going to be, we needed that. But I mean, you're talking to someone that went to Johns Hopkins, my wife, got a master's in public health, the #1 program in the world, got a master's, got a Welch scholarship for that. So got a master's in business administration, got honors in both, was in the MPH MBA program, which is like the premier program, was with J-Score, which they take the top 5-10% of those people of the MPH program. And then they do a joint thing with the Hopkins surgery, Hopkins #1 medical program in the world, maybe Stanford or Harvard or kind of equivalent, but I mean, there's nothing really better, right? I think it's 25% of all healthcare federal funding research goes through Johns Hopkins. It's insane. We love Hopkins. Go Blue Jays, go Blue Jays, go Blue Jays, go Blue Jays. All right. And it was still super hard for her to get a residency. Do you understand what I'm saying? So it's the same thing with the energy thing. That's why I wanted to play this. Why I wanted to talk about this and took so much time because this is deeper analysis. We are hurting ourselves with artificially constrained supply. People want lower prices. They want better care. You need more supply. You need more energy supply. You need more doctor supply. I said, listen, it's ask a super genius. I've done these things. We're gonna bring them back, right? It's at the end of the day, it gets complicated, but it's also very, very simple. You need more people working more effectively, more with technology, more efficiently to get better products and goods and more supply of products and goods at lower prices. It's that simple. There is no other way. So I definitely applaud Dr. Bricker here with this analysis. He does a great job. It's fantastic. Love to collaborate with him on sometimes, but I really wanted to bring that to you, and I appreciate him allowing us to bring that to you. And it's kind of more of the same here, but I think you get the gist of it. Paul, your comments with that analysis.
Yeah, look, I think the doctor obviously is on point, and the truth is, I mean, the stuff is, I think, relatively basic for many people and all, but the truth is there's a lot of people who don't understand or have never been taught basic economic principles.
Correct.
And so they might not understand how some of these things work. Now, you, of course, are very familiar with it. I'm familiar with it. Many people are not familiar with it. And so you end up wondering, well, why is this happening? Why can't I get care? Why isn't this working? Or in the system, like I said, like in Canada or whatever, why is there such a long wait and everything? That's where you need to know and understand these principles. And of course, you definitely need to understand them if you're going to go about changing them so that things are better.
Great point, Paul. Oh my gosh. That was a great point. Fantastic. Right. We just went through not that long ago a total overhaul of the healthcare system. Are we better? How'd that go? How are we doing on that? Right. So, we're not going to relitigate that here right now, but I mean, it's a big deal. And Paul, you see it, like you said, you have a lot of interface. I don't get into your stuff, but I mean, you like you said, you've seen some people on the lower end of stuff trying to interface with the healthcare system, and it's a rough deal.
It's a very rough deal, and look, there are examples that are good with it, but many examples are not good. And like I said, you can be covered and simply have no providers within anywhere even remotely close to you. And of course, if you're on the lower end of the spectrum, a lot of those people, they don't have the means to go multiple counties over.
Right. Great point.
To get care. I mean, look, this even for yourself. recently, I think your guys, like with the dental person you're working with,
Mhm.
that person's a distance away now, and you still want to keep them. Why? Because they're good and they're not ridiculously expensive.
True story.
it-
I
it
drove
definitely-
like 60, 80 miles just to see my dentist and stuff like that because they were legit and stuff like that. And we talked about that. We talked about our friends over there at Gulf Breeze Dentals in the St. Petersburg area over there in Seminole, Florida. We appreciate them and Dr. O'Callahan over there. But right. Absolutely. And there's a lot of people that are talking that are looking. There's some people that are going overseas for dental work or going overseas for medicine, stuff like that. I'm not advocating anything or I'm not alleging anything or whatever, but I'm saying like we have to do better here. And the thing is markets work and you can't stop gravity, you can't stop physics and you can't stop, markets and supply and demand, stuff like that. Now, I wanted to shift to this really quickly. Then we'll try to wrap up the last 5-10 minutes on election 24 and where we're at right now and all that type of stuff. Okay. So it looks like a lot of people are sort of coming to my position, and I'm not trying to listen. And I say this with as much humility as I can have, right? Because I've always said that I know enough to know that I don't know. Okay, of the whole things going on over there in the Middle East. And I think that it's very complex and we just want to see peace. We want to see people get along. We love everybody. We love Israel's a great ally. I've got family in Israel. I've visited Israel, stuff like that. We love the Jewish people. We love the Palestinian people. We love the Christian people, the Muslim people, the Jewish people, everybody, dude. We love everybody. We all want to get along. We want to have great success here. We want to see the world grow. We want to see peace, commerce, opportunity, and all that for everyone. Okay. But you also have to have security and different things like that. Now, it is a complex situation, and it also affects, I think, this election 2024. Now, I'm going to show you this screen right here. This is ABC News. And we've got here Americans' views on U.S. policy headline. This is Gary Langer, May 3rd, 6 a.m., ABC News. Americans' views divided on U.S. policy towards Israel. I can't even say too much, because so we got to watch out for some of the stuff. Okay, on the situation over there. Nearly 4 in 10 Americans say the U.S. is doing too much. Okay. Now, I'm just reading this. I'll qualify where I'm at on this. I'm not saying I agree with all this or anything like by any stretch. Okay. But you have to dig into this here. I think it's where is this at? And this is maybe different things. And I don't know. I think it was maybe this isn't maybe it's not the right article. It's a similar polling, but this might not be the right article. But it's something to the effect of 58%. I saw something, and I don't know if it's this or maybe it's something else or it's a Gallup one. It was something to the effect of 58% say that, after October 7th, Israel had the right to defend themselves. So the majority of Americans are support of that. Absolutely. There was that October 7th was horrific. It was despicable, and Israel needed, to respond, and they needed security, and they needed to make sure that they were secure. Right? That's the basic tenet of any government is one of them is security for their people. Okay, fair enough. However, now 6+ months later, it's people are having some different opinions on this thing, some disquiet, if you will, and not the least of which is you're seeing something here. So we'll come back to this here in a second as we're seeing this live. But it was something there was something to the effect of about a third said the U.S. is doing too much, and okay, so. And then about a 40% say it's just right. And then about the rest of them say, that it's too little, right? So it's about a third, right? About a third all the way around, right? So it's doing too little to protect Palestinian civilians. So a third saying too much, too little, just right. And you can look at it a couple different ways, right? And if you're a political expert like I am, it's like, on the one hand, it's like, oh, well, if everyone if it's kind of in the middle, then that means like it's probably fine, right? But I'm not saying the situation. I'm saying the policy. But the situation is terrible for everybody involved, and we want peace, and when we feel bad for everyone, okay, so we want to clarify that. But politically, you'd be wrong. And this is where the Biden administration is having, I think, a really hard time. And I want to, and so I want to, clean up and clarify what I said before. I'm not clean up, but I just want to clarify what I said before, just to make sure there's no misunderstanding on this issue as much as I can. And if I make a mistake, I apologize, and reserve the right to revise and amend later. It's live. The way you should look at it politically is only about a third say you're doing the right thing, policy-wise. Those aren't good numbers. So about 2/3 against what you're doing. Either it's too much or it's too little. And that's the problem. And we see this borne out for Joe Biden and Democrats. We see James Carville. We see this borne out on the college campuses. You've got different sides there, at least two, if not more. They're all unhappy. And a lot of these voters have been on the Democratic side, and they're not happy. And Biden is having this problem. Now we see some of this. I haven't looked through all of this here, but you've seen some of this, broken down here, how it's changed. Okay, so the U.S. is doing too much. You see that right here. So 31% said that in January. 38% are saying that now in April. Too little to protect the Palestinians. Too much to support one country over there. Too little to protect Palestinians. That's up. Who do we trust? Here's the devastating part, Paul. I'll bring you in on this. Trust to handle the war between the different sides over there. 29% Biden. That's the lowest number. 33% say neither. 37% say Trump. This highlights how brutal this issue is for the Democrats and why the Biden administration is going back and forth. I've seen them seem to vacillate. I've had different messaging over the weekend. This is just really, I told you. So a couple things. Number one, like October 7th was terrible. Nobody supports that. That's despicable. Israel has the right to defend themselves. Israel's a great ally of ours. We definitely support Israel. And Americans are behind that. A solid majority of Americans are behind that. Now, 6 months later, people have questions. Americans are concerned. You can't have collective punishment. All the things we said before. We love everyone. We want to see everybody in peace. We want to see everybody treated the same. We want to see all of this. Everyone has to get along and be treated correctly and respectfully. And it's a very complicated situation. I'm not going to solve it here. I'm surely not going to solve it in 7 minutes. We've talked about it before, but this polling reflects what I've been saying for 6-7 months. And I think everyone else is caught up. Tucker Carlson and Rogan and Patrick Bet-David, a lot of people are saying the same thing. But what's also showing here is exactly what I've been saying, which is this issue is devastating for the Democrats and devastating for the Biden administration. And you can do all the Stormy Daniels and you can have all this other stuff that me can talk about, whatever. But meanwhile, there's real things happening in the world and there's real things happening in the economy. And people are just saying enough of this. You have to have leadership. You can't just pop smoke for 6 months and in November, you're going to have an election. It's all going to be good. I think, what did I say? 2024, the revenge of reality. Paul, your comments.
Yeah, look, the bottom line is this for me, and I think it is the same for many people. When President Trump was in office, this wasn't happening. Not only was Israel not happening, Ukraine wasn't happening. And we weren't hearing about China maybe invading Taiwan.
Time out. Real quick. Sorry, real quick. I apologize, but you just hit on it right there. Hey, what's up with Ukraine? We just sent all that money to over there. How come we haven't heard about that? How about that? How's that going? How's the ROI looking on that? I mean, Paul, you're 100% right. I'll zip it right. It's like, it's so bad. And I'm not trying to be a partisan here. Like, This is just pure performance. Listen, President Biden's our president. I want to see him do well. It's not looking good right now. Paul, continue.
Yeah, the bottom line is like I said, there was peace when Trump was in office. No new wars, no anything. As far as how is Ukraine going, my understanding is that Russia's beginning a new offensive. That's how Ukraine, I think, is going right now. So, yeah, look at that, and that's why you're not hearing about it, in my opinion. So, look, there are people who, I know Victoria Nuland, who was whatever she was, I can't remember, in the State Department, and she retired recently, and apparently she said recently something to the effect of, hey, Trump wanted to do the Abraham Accords. Well, that didn't really address the Palestinian question, and so somebody was going to take advantage of it, and supposedly, that's how we got 10-7. Well, guess what? With the Abraham Accords, there was more peace going on. There was some normalization going on. It doesn't mean the Palestinians issue didn't have to be addressed, but it could have been addressed in a different way. Do you really want it addressed in the way that's being addressed right now? I don't think so. I think a lot of people really like it like this, in my opinion. So, again, these incidents didn't happen when Trump was in the White House. And as you said, I agree with you completely. This is devastating for Biden. He is having to play both sides, in my opinion, and nobody's happy. And that's why I think we're at.
Nobody's happy, and we wish everybody the best over there. It's a tough situation. And look, from Israel's standpoint, when you have it's a small country. You have all this. And same thing with Ukraine. You've got places that are we've had this in Vietnam, Cambodia. There's places that are still have ammunition and ordnance out there and mines and stuff like that. You've got Ukraine's devastated. It's going to take so long to. There was an organization that I think Princess Diana, when she was alive, was doing about how to demine places because children and different and animals and farmers would get hurt by these ordinances being out there in some of these forsaken battlefields and stuff like that. It's such a small area over there. Listen, I'm no expert or environmental and this is not good. We want to see peace. We want to see everybody treated fairly. We want to see everybody get along. And it was going so good with the Abraham Accords with Trump. And I think a lot of people are getting back to that. And I think a lot of people like Lawrence Taylor. Hey, I never voted for Trump before, but I'm voting now. I think we're going to bring my daughter in here real quick. Janair, we're ready. Come on over here. She wants to show. This. She's an artist. She's an artist. She wants to show some of the stuff. I got to describe it on the radio over here. She's an artist. We just had Mother's Day and stuff like that. What are we showing? What are we looking at right here? Look at that. What? Who is this? Go ahead. Say it. Talk right here. What do you want to say? What is this? What is this drawing now here?
It's in the North Pole.
Yes, North Pole. Good. And you love to draw. You love to do different things. We had Mother's Day yesterday. Do you love mommy?
Yeah.
You had a good time with Mother's Day and everything like that?
Yes.
Oh my goodness. And you made a little thing for mommy, didn't you? Some like art thing. Look at all this. And this, how long did it take you to make this?
A couple seconds.
No, but maybe like 5 minutes, 3 minutes, something like that. 5 minutes? 4 minutes? The thing is, I'm not kidding. Like, that's real. She's so fast. I can give you a stack. It's sad. Like, sometimes my wife throws it because my wife loves to be clean. We'll throw some. I'm like, do not throw that out. Like, she is so talented. I'm not saying she's Picasso. Who knows? 6.5 years old. Well, 6 3/4. We got a birthday coming up here. We got a birthday. 6.5 right here. Daddy loves you so much. We appreciate you. We appreciate mommy. We love everyone out there. I'll show the guys right here one more time. My daughter here.
Show this to guys how I draw.
Well, yeah, later. Right now, we're about to wind this show down. But next time we can show them all kinds of stuff like that. We high five. Wave to everybody. Come over here. Okay. Hey, we appreciate you out there. We had a good time. Lots to talk about. Thanks again to Dr. Eric Bricker for allowing us to play his video. Thank you to Paul, as usual, always doing a great job. We appreciate all the News Talk 1040 people out there. Fantastic show. This is the John D. Villarreal radio show here on News Talk 1040 and also live on Rumble, YouTube, Facebook, and X. Appreciate everyone. Have a great weekend. Have a great week out there. Stay blessed, and we'll see you next week.